All right, what's up, everybody? This is the GoatCast podcast for February 19th. We had to weren't on our usual schedule for Tuesdays. Just had some things going on. Life is life in for all of us. But I'm CW, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Big Nige. What's going on, Big Nige?
Not much. I know over here in North Carolina got hit by that big old cold front, so it's snowing over here. So I'm enjoying the
Mm.
work from home aspect. But it's always good to see snow and kind of watch it kind of pile up. So other than that, I'm just trying to stay warm and stay out the way.
Okay, so y'all got snow?
Oh yeah, we got I think
Okay.
probably about 2 inches, 2 or 3 inches by
Oh,
now, maybe
y'all
a little
probably got
more.
more than we did, and we're further up. We usually get all the snow, but we got some snow. But it's crazy out here as usual because we're not a state that is accustomed to snow. So when it snows, everything goes crazy. So that's what's going on here in North Carolina. But with that said, the All-Star game this year. We talked about this earlier. We did a live stream on Sunday, excuse me, when everything was going on. Myself, King Speech. Um, 3 games. We had Team Shaq, Team Chuck, Team Kenny, and Team Candace. They all vying for the first. I don't know what you call it. This first All Star Weekend Cup, whatever championship, and it was what it was. I mean, when it was all said and done, I wasn't completely mad at it, but it was not exactly what it could have been. And I thought it had all the right ingredients, but just didn't have they just didn't stick them out, if you're gymnastic terms. So there's been a lot of talk since then about what to do with the All-Star game, how this weekend went. I'm gonna get your take on this because we didn't get your take earlier on Sunday. But what do you feel about this All-Star game? We're not even talking about All-Star weekend, but All-Star game. How do you feel about that show Sunday night?
Overall, I think the game was more competitive than probably the last few All Star games. So that's a positive point for the NBA. I was slightly more engaged, since they had a target score and they had to strategize a little bit more instead of just running up the score like they normally do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because a quote by Kevin Durant, he even when he was clapping back with people on Twitter, he was saying like back in the '80s when people glorify the All Star game, it was because they were shooting a lot, they were doing a lot of dunks, layups, and mid range shots, so the game could be closer. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, because everybody's glorified by the 3 point shot and negative defense is being played, the score is so out of control by the time that they want to ramp it up in the fourth quarter, like they did in the '80s, they're down by like 60 points. So um, I'm glad that they kind of took a different approach with the target score, similar to what they did back in 2020 after the late great Kobe Bryant passed, and they put maximum effort, in the closing minutes of that game. So that was amazing to see. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and I think that maybe they could continue to use this, but maybe formulate some kind of like Team USA versus Team World kind of aspect to it, which you kind of saw with Team Shaq versus what was it,
Mm-hmm.
Team Chuck? Yeah,
Chuck. Yep.
yeah. So Team Shaq and Team Chuck was kind of like a little preview of Team USA versus Team World, and I was here for it. Wimby was going crazy. We got to see Dame, we got to see Steph. Tatum even chipped in a little bit here and there too as well. So yeah, it was great to see. Honestly, it was more refreshing this year as opposed to recent history.
Yeah, I agree, and I think my assessment in the live stream was that I thought it was good, but there were things that took away from it, and we'll get into that in a second. But like you said, I think the concept was great because I like that they themed each team where it just wasn't a random. Each team wasn't just random. It was, you had the young stars, you had the international stars, the OGs, and then you had the rising stars. And I thought that was perfect. And but the thing I think I said this on the live stream Sunday. It seemed like a setup to have Team OG versus international team, and then kind of play off of that. But um, I love the concept. I thought if they had been able to uh, put it together properly, I think this would have been a perfect All Star game because it was fun. And I don't know if you watched the Rising Stars on Friday, that little tournament. I thought that tournament was great. I think I look. You thought it was iffy?
I thought the Rising Star one was okay. I mean, just kind of lacked the star power personally. If I'm gonna enjoy an all-star type beat, I would prefer a little bit more hype around some of these guys' names personally.
Okay, I mean, I enjoyed the Rising Stars. I thought it was pretty good. All the whole tournament aspect of that, and then I thought the on Sunday it was good. Oh, what's going on, King's Speech? Um, so I mean, I thought that aspect of it was good. I felt like it had it has moments, but the drawback was there were so many commercials, there were so many
Mhm.
ads, there were so many they had to stop to talk. Kevin Hart and him hosting it, you had Mr. Beast, his segment, and it just took away so much from the game because if you want to hear the numbers, there was only 33 minutes of actual gameplay, and this was a 3-hour event. That's insane. So in 3 hours, only 33 minutes of it was basketball play. That's that's ridiculous. Like you can't really get into basketball if there's no basketball being played. And I think that's what ruined it. And I wanted to give Adam Silver his props because I thought this was a good concept. And I don't know if this was him saying it, but that 1v1, I guess we can kind of speak on that later. But I think that's a great concept. But I thought this was good because it made them compete and they looked like they wanted it. And then you had guys like Wimby who didn't get the memo and then realize you're not supposed to go all out during the All-Star game. And he was trying to he was acting like this was game 7 or the gold medal game again. So he was out there playing. But I just think that had they structured it a little better, this would have been a great all-star game. I don't know. I won't say weekend, but I think this would have been a great all-star game. But because it was so long and there were so many interruptions, that hurt it. Um, King Speech says sponsors put up all that prize money. Yeah, I mean, we saw it. There were so many. You had to plug in Starry, you had to plug in Kia. You got all these different ads and these different sponsors going in there and giving all having to be plugged. It just made this a hard watch, I think, from that aspect. And correct me if I'm wrong. Were you okay with the pace of the show and how it kind of transpired? Other than the concept of it, were you okay with how it kind of transpired?
I mean, I wasn't like super attentive because like we brought
Mhm.
up the time of like the ads and all the everything in between. I mean, definitely the Shaq and Kevin Hart thing. I mean, their banter was pretty funny. There was a nice little like
Mhm.
refresher if you would add, but everything else in between probably was a bit excessive. But like, hey man, the NBA got to make their money somehow because clearly people ain't tuning in like they claim they used to, supposedly.
I
So I mean,
mean,
gotta make that
yeah,
money.
I mean they got to pay these guys. These guys getting a lot of money. He said, "What parental car did McClung jump over?" I thought
It
it
was
was
a
a
Kia.
Kia, but I didn't. To
It
be
was a
honest,
Kia
I didn't pay attention.
because they were
Yeah,
comparing
okay,
it
so
to
yeah, it was a
Blake
Kia
Griffin's
because
dunk of a Kia over Mac McClung's, and they were saying which is better. Which I think Mac McClung was better because he actually jumped over like the actual
he
car and
jumped
not like
over
yeah, he
it,
jumped over the
and
car. So
yeah, Blake Griffin, if we remember, he jumped over the hood of the car.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, you had to appease all those advertisers and all that stuff, and it was just um for me, it took away, but it's what they have to do to pay these guys to actually compete. Um, so it was what it was. Do you think going forward, do you think this is going to be uh the strategy or the all-star game for the foreseeable future? Do you think this is what Adam Silver and the NBA will do going forward?
I still think eventually it'll come to Team World versus Team USA. I think this format is probably going to stick around, especially as we get more polarizing, like young stars, like potentially, like a Cooper Flag, like his namesake could be enough of a draw for maybe a future Rising Star game where you're putting him up against some of the remnants of Team USA, because you remember when they played, they had their little U18 whatever scrimmage against the Team USA squad. He was one of the promising younger players, kind of giving them buckets. So it could be like a full circle moment where you could probably hear some dialogue. Maybe Cooper Flag had said some things to certain players, like a Tatum, like a Durant, whoever's still around when he's in that Rising Stars game. Because now we don't even know if he's even coming into the draft. He might even go back to Duke for another season. So a lot to be determined. But yeah, I think the
Yeah.
format is probably going to stick around, but I also think there's going to be potentially one more year where it's just specifically like one team versus another, whether it's Team USA, Team World, or some combination of East and West. I think that's going to come back at some point, but I think for right now in the foreseeable future, that it will be this kind of format.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't think this is a bad format at all. I'm not saying that. I think some of the backlash is probably the way they formatted it because of having to, have Kevin Hart host and the things he had to do, and even the weird um homage or whatever they did for the Inside the NBA crew, which was during the beginning of the Team OG versus Team International, which took so long. I
Mhm.
just felt like they could have waited till the end to do that and let those guys play instead of everybody getting cold and having to sit for that long. But like I said, I'm not mad at it, and I think that, like you said, it's a good concept, and I think this is the kind of infusion the All-Star game needs, is these type of things, and that target score, I think, is what's really good because you the guys know what to do. If it's 38 to 35, these guys are going to go hard for that, 2 points or 3 points to win the game. And you didn't really get that with just them playing as Team East, Team West, or whatever. So I think that this is the perfect setup for them to really be able to showcase, you know, these guys in the proper way. And I just want to ask, during that time, Draymond Green kind of has some interesting comments. He was against the Rising Stars having a place during that during the I guess the tournament aspect of All-Star game. So do you agree with his assessment? Do you think that this should be just the best of the best? This is us paying respects to the best of the best, and they aren't, so they shouldn't be involved. What do you think about his little assessment of that?
I mean, I think his assessment is fair, but where I would give him pushback is the fact that this is only happening because the players weren't playing hard. Like, we've seen countless times of players just, lollygagging around, running up the scoreboard, not putting even like minimal effort on the defensive side of things. So, I mean, I get where he's coming from, but it's also because of the lack of, effort that they've put on throughout these past few years that put everybody in a room to say, "Hey, we got to come up with something that's watchable because this ain't it." So him and the rest of those players, they have to have some kind of accountability for the way that this All-Star weekend is going, because they're the reason why it's happening.
That's true. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's how this came about, is this their lack of effort. And I guess the league or Adam Silver saying, "Hey, you got to play. You don't want to get beat by these potentially G League team. You don't want to get beat by the Rising Stars." Even though I thought the Rising Stars did pretty good, they represented themselves well. I thought, even in the All Star game tournament against they they played the Team OGs. I thought they did fairly well. Um, so let's move over to All Star Weekend. I'm assuming you watched some of All Star Weekend, All Star Saturday Night.
Yeah, I watched it.
Did it do it for you? I mean, I know when we talked about in the preview, you were like, "This is just not. This ain't it." Did it do it for you?
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you the little celebrity joint Friday. Seeing Drewski, seeing Kai Cenat. Refreshing, funny, yes. Entertaining, no. I mean, we're just seeing a bunch of popular guys just go out there and look like who did it in wild on the basketball court. So I mean, funny, cool, but like then we get to the whole Wemby and CP3 for the skills challenge where they were just throwing the ball, throwing the ball. Hey, listen, I'm not going to knock them for doing it because honestly, it was genius. I mean, did they end up getting disqualified? Yes, but I don't knock them for it because even Wemby's comment was like, "I'm pretty sure we were still the fastest, regardless." So that was the
Hey.
purpose. Hey, they're putting an innovative way of attacking that problem. So hey, more power to them. I mean, shout out to Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, those two won it. So, kudos to them. I didn't really watch much of it. I just did want to point out that for the CP3 and Wemby thing, and then the 3-point contest. I'm surprised Buddy Hield didn't win. He was the best shooter in that contest. The fact that he had to go because he got 31 in the first round. I'm like, at that point, I'm like, just go ahead, sign, seal, deliver it to him. Like it's his. And then he got cold at the end in the second round because he needed to make every last shot on his money ball rack to win. And he ended up missing one of them. And I'm like, dude, you really just fumbled the bag here because home court, he had home cooking because this was in for the Golden State or San Francisco, whatever. And the fact that he looked like the best. I mean, shout out to Tyler Hero for winning. He was definitely my one of my like top picks to win it. My dark horse Norman Powell didn't do me no justice. And I already told you, whether it was Cade Cunningham, Brunson, respectable dudes, but they're not 3-point shooters. So I thought the 3-point contest was cool. It had a lot of people who weren't supposed to be there anyway, but especially Cade, bro. Like, go sit down somewhere, Cade.
It was at points it was hard to watch some of those guys.
Yeah, like these guys were barely hitting rim. Like it was like, come on. But regardless, I ain't gonna be too hypocritical. Just shout out to Tyler Hero for getting it, and then to finish up for the dunk contest, Buzelis, Andre Jackson. Y'all should have just stayed home, man. Listen, man. I understand.
2-man dunk contest.
It really was, and it was a surprise. It was even that, because these two, Buzelis and Jackson, you could tell there were some nerves. Like, let's be honest. Like, you got everybody watching, your peers. You got all stars in there. Like, everybody's in there, OGs and all. So I get it, right? Nerves can get the better of you, but like, I don't know if they don't do enough practicing under the big stage or what. The creativity from them guys weren't really there. The execution definitely wasn't there because amount of layups or amount of dunks they kept bricking. Now I'm just like, bruh, like I'm rooting for you guys to dethrone this man, Mac McClung. And they just continued to choke after dunk after dunk. So, I mean, shout out to Stephon Castle. He did some very good dunks with no props, unlike Mac McClung. So, like, if maybe Stephon Castle comes back and he adds a couple more props, it could really have gone either way, honestly. Like, I would have still picked Mac McClung, but it was a contest at the end of the day, and that is, again, improvement. Because last year, Mac McClung ran away with the dunk contest. It wasn't even close. As far as I'm concerned, it wasn't close the last 2 years. But
True.
Stephon Castle, he showed out. He did his thing. And Mac McClung, of course, he performed in great fashion. And he's even inspired. I think he did say something about retiring or some kind of report, but Ja Morant might be taking his place. Giannis Antetokounmpo might be pulling up, and they think Zach Levine even tweeted as well. So, we'll see if this is actually legit. But somebody's got to carry the mantle because Mac McClung has been hard carrying the past 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm gonna piggyback off of that, and then I'll go down. Yeah, McClung came out swinging. I mean, even though I'm biased because I'm a Spurs fan, so I wanted Stephon to win, and I think he was the MVP of the weekend because from the Rising Stars, he showed up in the dunk contest. Didn't really show up in the All-Star game tournament thing, but yeah, I thought he was a big time MVP because his name got out there. But yeah, but McClung hit him in the mouth, hit all of them in the mouth with his first dunk, and pretty much it was them trying to catch up. Buzelis, I mean, he tried. Jackson Jr. I don't know why he even came. And Stephon Castle, I thought had some good dunks. It was just McClung knew how to get the crowd in his, in his bag. That he knew what to do to get the crowd behind him. And once he had the crowd behind him, it was over. I mean, it was pretty much over after that first dunk over the car. He just had everybody, on his side, and him being a little guy and showcasing that type of leap, it was just crazy. So I wanted to say the dunk contest is semi back, especially with Ja Morant and Giannis and these guys tweeting or Xing, whatever you want to call it, afterwards. Now, will they have that same energy when it's time to show and prove next year? That's the question. I would love to see Ja in there. I would love to see. I don't know about Giannis. He's kind of up there. But Zach Levine, he ain't doing nothing else. So I mean, you might as well try to dazzle us with a few more dunks. So hopefully this inspires them. They're seeing G Leaguers coming into their league, taking it over. All-Star Weekend dunk contest. So maybe they're going to say we're going to bring it back to us. We're the stars. We should be the ones that are getting these accolades and these awards. So maybe hopefully that does it. The 3-point contest, I thought it would be a little better. It was kind of anticlimactic. It was kind of fun because Buddy Hield has such a good chance. And that first round was just crazy. That was record setting, I believe. It looked like he couldn't miss. And everybody else was just kind of mediocre. Dame was, what he was. But then, Tyler Hero. And what 3-point contest does is show you how ugly some guys' shots are because you actually get to see it over and over. Tyler Hero's shot is just weird. Jalen Brunson's shot is very weird to me, just looking at it. Cade Cunningham's shot is like, I don't know if I would teach that, but I mean, they're NBA players, they're all-stars, so I can't say don't shoot like them, but it just looks weird when you actually see them pick up a ball and shoot it like that. So that's what that did for me, is see how weird their strokes are. And I thought Buddy Hield had the best, he looks like a shooter to me, but he just came up short. And then, of course, the highlight of the skills challenge was Wemby and CP3 getting disqualified. Everything else, I don't think anybody cared for. I would like for it to go back to how it was, where I believe it was a current player, a legend, and like a WNBA player, something like that. I would much rather go back to that because I think that was more fun. The 2-man game is just no. I think they can redo that and do something different. But All-Star Saturday night, I thought was okay. What would you grade if you're giving it a letter grade? What would you grade All-Star Saturday night?
I give All-Star Saturday night, I give it a B.
B. Okay.
Like I don't think it was like C material because I think the All-Star game showed considerable improvement. I think the 3-point contest took a step back, but I think the dunk
Mhm.
contest took a step
Took a step
up.
forward. Yeah. Yeah.
And also the new dynamic with the Rising Star, like the Rising Star game, even though I didn't watch a lot of it, the moments that I did watch for that Friday, I mean, was still entertaining and they competed. And they usually
Mhm.
do because we
Mhm.
usually see a lot of good clips from the Rising Star game. But yeah, coupling all that with some big names like Kevin Hart, Drewski, Kai Cenat, all of them in there all together, I think overall, I think it was a B.
Yeah. Yeah, I gave it a B plus Sunday night. And I'll stand by that. I thought it was fun. I mean, from Friday to Sunday, I thought it was a fun outing. They did have their issues. I think what really killed Sunday was the pacing. If they had paced it better, I think it would have been. I could have bumped it up to an A because the Rising Star Friday night was phenomenal to me. Saturday was pretty good. Like you said, I agree wholeheartedly. I think the 3-point contest took a step back, but I think the dunk contest really um, added to the Saturday night. So I was happy to see that. So altogether, I thought it was a good All Star weekend. So I gave it a B plus. I don't. I think there's some things they can definitely go back and look at and progress off of. I think Adam Silver should, kind of look at changing that skills challenge a little bit. It's kind of washed out now. I think they should add some, and I think they really need to add that WNBA flair to it. I think that adds to the weekend because you get something a little different. So, I mean, other than that, I think they did a solid job. If they would have, if Saturday, I mean Sunday, if they would have just paced it better, great. But they didn't, so that's a knock on them. But other than that, but I did also hear, I don't know how true this is, that they're thinking about doing a 1v1. I guess they saw Unrivaled, and I thought that 1v1 was great. Nafisa, she won. Um, but I thought that was very fun to watch. And I didn't watch a whole lot of Unrivaled, but I did watch some of the 1v1s, and those were fun to watch. Do you think NBA players would, especially all-star level players, uh would be in a 1v1 tournament type setting? Would they participate in that? Do you think that's something they can do in the future?
Yeah, I think the NBA, if they come to the players for the right amount of money, which probably in them M's, somewhere in the million, 1 million, 2 million, something like that, I think that's more than enough incentive for players, all star level, MVP level, whatever. They'll compete for a one-on-one tournament. I'm not gonna say you'll get the all of them, but you'll get a good amount of them. And the most entertaining one, Kyrie Irving. If you can get him,
Oh yeah.
you can get that's pretty much that's the show right there. You could whoever we want to throw against him, whatever. But Kyrie Irving is the typical prototypical 1v1 player that's like you would want to see him. You as a fan, if they were to set the tone with the All-Star weekend with a 1v1 tournament featuring Kyrie Irving, it don't even matter who you put in front of him. He's just working every single person. And like that is entertaining to see. And
Mhm.
if you set the standard with that, now it puts the pressure on everybody else. The 3-point contest gotta be on point. The dunk contest gotta be on point. Ja Morant, let's go. Zion, whatever, let's go. Like you're going because Friday night usually is like you kind of like get your foot in the door with All-Star Weekend. You get a little bit of the celebrities. We kept the Kevin Harts of the world, from a few years ago when he was kind of carrying that
Mhm.
celebrity All-Star game and bringing the fans for that. But like if you were to have that, that's like a big game changer for a 1v1 tournament because it would open up Friday night. Then you're
Mhm.
already bringing fans over to Saturday night, and then if you're continuing to progress for the All-Star game, now you have a legitimate All-Star weekend of you want to see the 1v1 tournament for a Friday. You want to see the 3-point and slam dunk contest for Saturday. And then, of course, you'd want to see the All-Star game, considering with more effort from the players. That's a star-studded
Mhm.
All-Star weekend, and that's for sure going to get you the marketability that you want, the fan engagement, and everything in between that you've been sorely lacking in previous years.
I agree wholeheartedly. And quick shout out to King Speech and Casual, two big friends of the show. We thank you guys for being in the chat right now. Yeah, I think 1v1 would be because if I'm being honest, the little stuff we got between Kyrie and Wimby was fun. You know,
Mhm.
that was really cool. And that's what is kind of missing from the All Star Weekend is those little back and forth, those little, even if you go back to when I forget what year it was, but when Kobe tried to lock down LeBron, in those closing moments, he was all over LeBron, and it was superstar versus superstar, trying to see who was king of the court. And I think that that's something that could really spark the interest back and could really be a big part of All Star Weekend again. Yeah, I would love a 1v1. And it doesn't have to be the All Stars, just the All Stars playing against each other. But like you said, have Kyrie, have Wimby. He looks like he wants to compete. Giannis is a guy that likes to compete. Get some of those guys out there. And I don't think you have to do position by position, as we saw. Kyrie kind of cooked Wimby a little bit. I mean, he missed a shot. He missed a little floater, but I mean, he showed you that he can break down a much bigger, taller, but yet great defender. That's potentially the defensive player of the year right there, and he broke him down with just his footwork and his skills. So that's just something different. That's just something that we've never seen. And I think that's what the All-Star Weekend needs. It needs things we've never seen. And I think that that's the best way to kind of move forward. So yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great addition to All-Star Weekend. But overall, I guess we both thought it was a pretty not spectacular show, but it was good enough to, have a passing grade. So with that, we're gonna move on. So as the teams, everybody gets back together and gets prepared to endure this second half of the season or these last few months or so for the season. What teams got a little pressure going forward? There's some teams that have been doing really great that may have a little pressure because it's going to ramp up a little bit. Teams are going to take them a little more serious going forward. You have teams that have made some moves that now they got to show improve with these moves. So, with that said, which team or teams do you believe have the most pressure as we head into the second half of this season?
Well, let's go ahead and get the obvious heavy hitters out the way. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on the Los Angeles Lakers. The whole Luca, LeBron, or LeBronchich, or something like that, whatever that's going on now. They're going to have a lot of eyes on them. They got Charlotte on their first game back, where everybody looks like they're ready to go. Luca's off his minutes restriction, and I think LeBron is questionable. So we'll see if he comes back and if he plays, because he obviously sat out in the All-Star game, and that was definitely some buzz behind that because he waited so long to say something about it. But
I
yeah,
didn't mention that, but we could end with that. But yeah, that was some interesting things.
I mean, I didn't think nothing, not that much of it, other than the fact that somebody else who was going to play could have played. So that's only flack I would give LeBron in that situation. But getting back to the pressure, I mean, right now the Lakers are the fifth seed, and they're sitting pretty comfortably at fifth. I think about 2 or 3 games ahead of the Clippers. So the pressure is going to be on the Lakers to make sure they can figure it out. Continue to keep their seed, and if not, move up. At least stay as a fifth seed. You don't want to acquire somebody like Luca and then fall out of the playoffs. Like that's kind of where you probably the worst case scenario. I think they're good enough that they can probably stay around the fifth seed, assuming health. So they'll just be talked about a lot, and they'll be pressure will be on them to make the playoffs and make a significant run going into the postseason. Just because again you have Luca and you have LeBron, and that in the media's eyes should be enough. Another team, gotta go ahead and say the Dallas Mavericks. They've the fans are all over the place with them. Now you got GMs, you got presidents of basketball operations, you got all them coming together to defend Nico Harrison and basically just keep bad mouthing Luca. So this is what you're trying to sell the fans, and your commodity that you traded for, Anthony Davis, is gone for at least a month. And Gafford goes down. And Derek Lively was already down. So now you're down your three front court guys. And you got a seething, pissed off fan base that's like, why did you make this trade for an injury prone guy just for him to show you he's an injury prone guy? What are we doing here? This guy, Luca, was what? Almost an all NBA guy every season, minus this season because he was disqualified because of the injuries, but he got you to some conference finals. He just got you to the NBA finals. So again, what are we doing here if we're in Dallas? So there's pressure on them. There's going to be more pressure on Kyrie. Kyrie's going to be another guy where it's like, hey man, me and Luka was balling. Now you give me AD. AD's all world. Can he stay healthy? Can I count on this guy not only for this regular season? What if we make it to the postseason? Is AD going to disappear in the fourth quarter like he's prone to do it at times? Is he going to be the running mate that I need for a championship run? I know Luka is because we just got to the finals. We were a little unprepared, and they also underperformed a little bit in that finals, but they didn't even give Kyrie and Luka a chance to redeem themselves. Right? All things that people need to pay attention to, especially if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, because Kyrie could also just opt to leave after this season, right? So you got all those things going on for LA, got those things going on for the Mavericks. But another team I want to kind of pivot to is Timberwolves, because Julius Randle, let's just go ahead and call it like it is. He's not the answer. All right. You gave up Towns, and Towns looks amazing in New York. Julius Randle is not the answer. Now, if you know me, you know I've had a big disdain for Julius Randle's game, and I think he's looked good for some stretches of this season. I'm not going to crucify him, but he is not the answer, and he is not the fit. So, again, we're looking at holistically. If they continue to look mediocre, like a lot of people are anticipating they will be, that's going to put more pressure on Anthony Edwards to compete, to lead this team. But it's also like, is he going to be looking elsewhere? Is he going to get disgruntled? We don't know. But I'm just saying, if you trade away, again, this the reason why I bring up Anthony Edwards, for the same reason I brought up Kyrie Irving. You take away their second player, their co-star, and you flip them for somebody who's not what you thought they'd be. How are you going to feel for the direction of your front office if you are the guy or the second guy and your number one guy? In Kyrie's case, if Luka goes away, use the number one guy. Now that puts a spotlight on you. Remember when we had the spotlight on him in Boston? He didn't like that. Everybody was vilifying Kyrie. Not Kyrie, Luka, because you remember Kyrie didn't play that good in the finals. He was kind of boxed up. He's called like it is. So the fact that now, and all like Luka got all the flack because people kept talking about his defense or lack thereof, and he didn't shoot a very good percentage with certain defenders on him, X, Y, and Z. But I say all this because Kyrie is now the man. AD, hey, AD's gonna give you what he gives you, but he's also gonna need street clothes for a good majority of these games. So listen, if I'm Dallas, I'm concerned. If I'm LA, Luka also hasn't agreed to extend, so there is pressure that you need to put some good pieces around him and continue to compete, or he will walk out. He does not owe LA nothing. He didn't pick to go to LA. And then if I'm Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, hey man, clock's ticking. And y'all better stop playing around and get Julius Randle up out of there for some pieces, because y'all didn't make no moves during the deadline, and that's scary. If I'm the Timberwolves fan, I'm very scared about Anthony Edwards' future.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Those, especially the Lakers, they obviously have the most pressure. You bring in a pretty much top 3 player to play with one of the greatest players of all time on a team that is win now. They're not, this Lakers team ain't gonna wait till 2026, 2027 for Luka to really get established with that team. They want them to win now. So your whole assessment pretty much is what I feel. And also Dallas, Dallas, Nico Harrison, he did this for win now. And if you can't win now for a fan base that's already not happy, you're looking at a bad summer. If they don't make it to the playoffs, or if they get to the playoffs and just get trounced in the first round, I would hate to be you. That's all I got to say. You better have some good security, and you better be thick-skinned, because there's going to be a lot of things thrown your way after that trade. And of course, your Minnesota assessment. Another team I wanted to touch on in this is the Golden State Warriors. I think they have not as much pressure as some of those other teams, but you went out, you got Jimmy Butler, the disgruntled Jimmy Butler from Miami. You sent some decent pieces their way. Obviously, and you signed him to 2 years. 2 years, what, 121 or something like that?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money you're going to be paying this guy. He's 35, I believe. 30.
I think he's 35 or 30. Yeah, I think 35.
Yeah, he's 35, which means his prime was probably 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So you're talking about a guy that's going to go downhill rapidly. You're paying exorbitant numbers. And your core is old. Your core is Steph Curry, one of the greatest players of all time, but he's getting up there. Draymond Green, who has, jumped off a cliff and fallen all the way down to the bottom. But gives you, he's serviceable. You got some good young pieces. You didn't have to give up Kuminga. You got Moody still, who you play every now and then. You got, I don't know how to say his name, Pajinski, yeah, whatever his name is. You got these young guys. What are you going to do? And you're in a very tough Western Conference, who has a very young team in OKC with solid pieces. You got an older team. Well, you did have an older team in the Lakers, but they've gotten a little younger. You got a team that's hit or miss with Denver, but are trending the right way, and they're going to be a good team. They're going to be a tough out. They just have that type of team. You got Minnesota, who's, despite what they got going on with Julius Randle and them, kind of taking a step back, they're still a great team. So what are you going to do with this squad? You got Steph, you got Jimmy Butler. What are you going to do? And I think the pressure is on Steve Kerr. We've been putting Steve Kerr in the fire these last couple of years. He's done some good things. I feel, I was really hard on him last year. I thought he had to step up as a coach, and I felt like early this season he did, and then they completely jumped off the cliff. So I think this is going to show us, are the Golden State Warriors the organization we think they are, and they can pull themselves from the dregs and climb back up to be at least serviceable when it comes to the playoffs and being. I don't think they're a contender, but I think they're a team that can be tough in the playoffs. But I think they're a team that, by what we are talking about, have a lot of pressure, because they have to show that there's something now. Because if they did this Jimmy Butler trade and Jimmy Butler leads to nothing, they look like complete idiots. And and if Luka looks like he's at least what we think he'll be for the Lakers, then Mike Dunleavy Jr. is going to be. I think if we're going to put Nico Harrison on the hot seat, I think Mike Dunleavy Jr. has got to go to the hot seat, because if you're going to pay Jimmy Butler at 35 years old $121,000 for what is 2 years, a 2-year extension,
121 milli in millies.
That is insanity to me. So if you're going to do that and you're going to think that that's what you need for your team to go further, I mean, yeah, you need to be reevaluated. And like my man Big Nice likes to tell to me, you might need to take a drug test if you think
Absolutely.
paying Jimmy Butler that much money to uh yeah, that's just insanity.
I wanted to ask
Sports
you.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you can go ahead and bring up
Sports
that.
Talk only after Draymond comments the Warriors are number one. They are absolutely not number one in anything, but maybe number one idiots. That might be the number one thing they are
I
so
wanted to
far.
bring up the like the standings. I don't know if you can pull them up, but right now I'm like looking at them, and I
Okay.
was curious with the acquisition of De'Aaron Fox. Your Spurs are the 12th seed, and if we're talking about the second half of the season, do you believe there'll be some pressure for De'Aaron Fox and Wemby to make the playoffs? You have a struggling Phoenix team ahead of you. You have the Warriors, who they
Mhm.
did get Jimmy Butler, so they're probably going to be roughly in that spot. Maybe they dip a little because of injuries, and we know Jimmy Butler can go down at any point, just along with Steph. So, is there any pressure for the Spurs to make a playoff push after acquiring a guy like De'Aaron Fox?
Just to go back to what Sports Talk, he said they should be the number one with pressure because of what Draymond said about them being they will win a championship. Draymond definitely needs to be drug tested, just like Mike Dunleavy Jr. and a few other people we've talked about.
Mm.
Yeah, they have exponential pressure if they think that they're going to win a championship. So back to your question about the Spurs and with the Aaron Fox, I don't think they have pressure though. I don't think so because they're still a very young team, and I don't think De'Aaron Fox coming in a mid-season trade is going to establish them as a championship or break team. Even though he's he's all-star level, and they have gotten better. I just don't think that the pressure is on them like other teams. I think they will have some pressure because they have the pieces to be really good because they didn't have to give anything up. But the problem is they're still a really young team. I think this will kind of show them the value of a guy like Devin Vassell, even Sohan. If they can't get into the top 8, if they cannot get a playoff spot, then those guys are very much expendable for that team going forward. So I don't think there's that much pressure on them because I think that kind of fell into their lap. It wasn't something that they were shooting for, to make them the team to beat out west. But I think that them getting De'Aaron Fox will help them going forward. I think off season you can kind of let CP3 go. You can kind of let some guys go and build around those two because right now it's kind of CP3, Wimby, and De'Aaron Fox, where you need CP3 to kind of run that show a little bit to kind of get Wimby going to where he needs to be going. And you have the addition of De'Aaron Fox. I think if once you let CP3 kind of ride off into the wind, then you can kind of be a little more flexible with your team and kind of put together a team that can be a team that can go forward in the West.
I semi disagree with you. When
Okay.
now we get not most pressure, but I do think this elevates the timeline for Wimby, right? Wimby is this pantheon, great player. People,
He
they were
is.
talking about he hit more threes than Steph Curry at this point in his career, and more was it more blocks than Hakeem and more points than LeBron or something like that.
He's
Um,
the GOAT.
he's in that talk, right? So
Mhm.
you have an all-star caliber point guard.
Mhm.
You got him midway through the season. Why is it without the realm of possibility that these guys make the playoffs? Because number one, Phoenix Suns are struggling.
Yeah.
3-7 in their last 10. I'm not going to say cast any aspersions because the Spurs are the same way. But the Spurs got better. The Phoenix
Mhm.
Suns, they've stayed right where they and they've even, and we'll probably touch on this a little bit, but the Kevin Durant situation, there's pressure for Phoenix now too, because they willingly put it on record that they shopped Kevin Durant. And he
Mhm.
went on and had his interview with Malika Andrews when he
Mhm.
basically nixed the trade to the Golden State Warriors because, he just said he didn't want to get traded midway. He made it seem like he wanted to have this last ride with his guys in Phoenix because he doesn't know what happens at the end of this season. So, yeah, there will be also some elevated pressure for Phoenix. And we all know Phoenix does not handle pressure very well.
Mhm.
So I remember when you asked me toward the beginning of the season who's gonna make the playoffs between the Warriors and the Suns, and I said the Suns. Now that the trade deadline has happened, it looks more like the Warriors. But that being said, I think the Spurs could catch both of these teams. And the greatness of De'Aaron Fox, and of course a player like Wemby, yes, they've elevated their timeline, and yes, I don't think any of the immediate fans are like, oh, why are they not going to be in the playoffs? But what I'm getting to is the Warriors, old. The Suns, no cap flexibility to do anything. So what I'm trying to get to is the Spurs have improved and they can definitely catch these two teams. A team like Sacramento could get worse in the standings because of the redundancy of Zach LaVine
They
and
will.
DeMar DeRozan. So they're the ninth seed and they're right there with Golden State. I think the Kings could free fall. I think the Suns could free
They
fall, and I
could.
think in an injury to any of the core of Steph, Jimmy, and now Draymond, who guaranteed the championship. I don't know what drugs he was on when he made that statement. Somebody needs send that brother some help because if that's actually true, he needs to go. He
Hey,
needs to come
Nurkic,
to Jesus moment because
Nurkic warned us he needed some help. So
again. And what is it? The Big O, Oscar Robertson had comments about him calling the All-Star game boring, and he was saying Draymond all he do is pass to Steph. He passed to Steph more than he passed to anybody else. Like Oscar Robertson was saying that he passed to Steph more than a basketball player should be passing the ball because it just says
yeah.
that's the kind of player he is. He give the ball to the other guy who's him, and you just sit in the background like a side character. Um, so regardless, I think the Spurs will have some level of pressure on them because they got better. And I think the other teams outside of Golden State, I think they got a little worse. Like the Kings got a little worse because like I said, I don't like the fit with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. We've already seen it. Domantas Sabonis, of course, is an upgrade from Vucevic, but like let's just be real here. Like the Kings aren't that good.
No.
The Warriors are old, and the Suns, they've just been selling lately. I don't know why they're so bad. I don't know if they're Charmin soft, whatever the case may be, but they're just not that good. So I do like Bobo at center, though. I think it's fire. I think it's cool.
He's look good. He's look good.
But is that going to hold water for the second half of the season? If Katie's already talking about, hey man, hey, I don't want to leave midway. I got to rock out for this last run. I don't know why the Spurs shouldn't have at least some pressure to make the postseason when the people above them basically almost all got worse or older.
I mean, if you're saying pressure just to make the postseason, I think there is some.
You got
But
Wemby.
pressure, huh?
You got Wemby. You got an all-time great. And
We
you
got
got
the
the
we
defensive
we
player
do
of the
have the
year.
GOAT. We got the GOAT. So
So
the
why
GOAT
not?
we have to have progression of a GOAT. Did Mike win was he in the finals or
We
competing
ain't talking about
his
Mike.
second season?
I'm just
Was
saying the
LeBron
second.
his
I'm just
second
saying
season?
Wemby is great. You gave him one of the better guards in the league.
Okay.
Why can the expectation not be playoffs? They're not that
It
far
is
behind.
playoffs. I mean that's been their expectation all season. So there's no pressure because that's been the expectation since they got I won't say a lesser guard, but they got a guard that's not nearly on the same level as De'Aaron Fox now because they're much older in CP3, but that's been their ceilings all season. So I think they have the right mix right now. But like I said earlier, they were not they weren't planning on a De'Aaron Fox mid-season falling into their lap. And the Spurs are a team, they're a corporate type of team where they want to plan things out. They need things structured so they can, maximize their players. They're not a big mid-season trading team. They have Since I've been a fan, I've never seen them make huge mid-season changes. I mean, they traded Richard Jefferson for Steven Jackson, but that was like a lateral move. That wasn't like a well, I think it's an upgrade, but it wasn't really a huge upgrade. So, I think that they're on pace or pressured enough to where it's definitely playoffs or bust for them right now. And I don't think to me, there shouldn't be too much pressure because I mean, that's not them. They don't get big names mid-season and then be able to implement that and really be effective with those type of players immediately. They usually do that. If they do that, like a Steven Jackson, a guy that has been in their system, so they know how to implement them in their system right away. So I don't think there's that much. I don't think there should be that much pressure on them. I think they'll easily get into the playoffs. I'm gonna do a Charles Barkley. I'm gonna guarantee it.
Easily?
Sacramento's gonna get worse. Sacramento's gonna get worse. The
Okay.
Suns, they just for whatever reason, they just don't have it. I don't think
Charmin
the
soft.
second. What'd you say?
It's because they're Charmin soft. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think they have it. I don't think they have the pieces. I don't think the pieces even really care. Now they see it's a struggle for them to win games. They're not. I don't think they're gonna just change in the last fourth of the season to really be a team that we can trust in being great. So I think the Spurs are going to get where they expected to get, which is into the playoffs, play in. I don't know how far they'll go. I don't think they're quite ready to go too far because they are a very young team. But I don't think there's that much pressure on them. I wouldn't put that much pressure on them because I think that they're kind of in where they should be right now. And I'm not too worried about them getting to where they should get. Now, after this season, now in 2026, once they can kind of see what De'Aaron gives them, they can kind of feel different um teams about players that will complement him and Wimby, excuse me. Then I think that's when they're going to have the biggest pressure. Once they can finally put the team they want together, that's when the pressure is going to come in. And Wimby's probably going to hold him to the fire because he's a guy that likes to win. And if they start making moves and they're not working, then I think then we'll see kind of the pressure on San Antonio.
Okay. No argument there. Just understand also Dallas is probably going to free fall as well too, with no front court players that are worth a damn.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
you got
sad.
eight, but you got
That's
AD,
sad,
Gafford, and Lively all down for a considerable stretch of the second
man.
half of the season. So that's another team that could also
Yeah,
dip.
that's really sad for a team that's on paper really good that they're just going to probably, like you said, free fall because of
Injuries.
injuries. Yeah.
But yeah,
So
that's
with
all.
that said, we're going to you kind of talked about KD and him not wanting to. He didn't want to pick up and leave mid-season with the Suns. I guess he wanted to fulfill this season, and then I guess so. He wasn't mad at the Warriors uh, and him being shopped during the trade deadline, but he didn't want to just up and leave those guys. I guess. Um, so are KD and the Warriors maybe still a thing, and will KD be a Sun when the 2026 season starts? Are we looking for him to kind of be okay with them kind of shopping him different places? could could him and the Warriors kind of rekindle what they had, even though it's a whole different vibe now? Do you think that KD, you know, with his remarks, is looking elsewhere as we go beyond 2025?
I think nothing is for certain anymore. I if you're Kevin Durant and as fickle as Kevin Durant has shown he can be, um, obviously I don't think him to the Warriors would be realistic anymore now that they got Jimmy Butler. But I will say since they already shopped him, and let's just say they missed the playoffs this season, or get toasted in the first round by OKC or whoever, um, I see a scenario where they kind of agree to part ways because if Bradley Bill's contract is untradeable because he has that no trade clause, you can't get any assets for him. You don't want to move off your younger asset, which is Devin Booker. So by extension, it's gonna have to be Kevin Durant. Other because there's no other moves you can really make that will move you to a drastic enough part where you guys can compete again. So I think if they underperform, if they get bounced in the first round or miss the playoffs, KD is gone. Um, you know that the next question is where he could go. I mean, teams that have the assets to get him. I mean, maybe Houston if they get beat in the first round by a more
Mhm,
experienced playoff team, and they're like, man, we just need that one more piece. KD could be that piece for them.
mhm,
Um, you got obviously there's OKC, but I don't think they would touch any of their assets. They have a lot of draft capital, but to make the salaries work, you'd have to give up, one of your better players, which I don't think they would want to do that. Um, I'm sure Orlando's got the cap; they could probably do it. They have the defense around Kevin Durant, where they just need somebody to put
mhm,
the ball in the hole. He could do that for them. Um, and maybe Miami, of course, because you always hear KD's name with Miami, but given the whole Pat Riley thing, I don't know if he'd even want to go there, personally speaking. But yeah, this whole KD situation probably is going to be a bigger talk going into probably after the postseason, like this summer, to
mhm,
see like kind of what's next for him. He's probably the biggest name that could be on the move. But yeah, I think Houston probably makes the most sense, um,
mhm,
just because they have the assets, they have the young pieces that would be attractive for a team like Phoenix, who desperately needs wing defenders and young players. Um,
mhm.
so so yeah, I would say it's definitely look for him to be on the move at the end of the season if they not even if when they get bounced in the first round or when they don't make the playoffs, he will be on the move, and I think Houston is a team you need to look at.
No hope in the Lakers.
Nah, that's a pipe dream. I mean, if I was sit here to say the Lakers, I would just be making a fool out of myself. They ain't gonna get. He ain't going there. They ain't what happening.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree pretty much what you said. Houston, as you said, makes the most sense. And I've heard little talks, little things, rumblings that that's a team that could be targeting him next season because they have a very good, as we see, a very good young core. They just don't have that one guy that they can count on to take them to the next level. And KD, even older KD, might be that guy. He just likes to hoop, as he says. He's just a guy that likes to play basketball, and he's all business. So I think a guy like that would be perfect for that Houston Rocket team that has just hard workers and guys that are willing to go out there and play their parts. Um, I think he would do well in OKC, but like you said, they don't want to give up none of their young core because they're built for the next probably 10 years. And bringing in a guy like um, KD is just going to disrupt all of that. But I feel like his mentality would work with them because they're a team that they're all about basketball. They're all about playing the right way. They don't really have any selfish players. They're not guys that are just out there to put up numbers or anything like that. They're rooting for the next guy up. Even when Aaron Wiggins scored that 41, they were all piled around him and really, giving him his props. So they're a team. They have a great team dynamic, and you probably don't want to mess that up even with the guy that probably fits in with them well with KD. But um, if I'm Phoenix, I'm probably trying to send him out east, not within our conference. Um, so that's that. And what you said again makes sense. The Magic, they just need that score. They have a good team. They're kind of similar. They're like the Eastern Conference Houston team. You know, they have a good squad. They just need that one player that can, push them to the next level. So, as you said, I don't think KD's going to be around for Phoenix much longer. I think this season he's going to finish up this season, and then they'll be looking for separate pastures going forward this offseason. So I think it's going to be an interesting offseason. We had the craziest trade deadline of all time. So I think with that, I think some guys are going to not be, and some teams are going to be willing to pull Nico Harrison's and just, just go crazy with these guys and just, see what, throw something at the wall and see what sticks. So with that said, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up tonight. We a lot of all-star talk, the teams with the most pressure. Of course, KD, where is he going to go? So before we get out of here, Big Nige, what do you got anything to say before we leave?
I'm excited for the second half of the season. Interested to see what the Lakers are going to do. What my man back here going to do. What kind of season is he going to put together for the second half? Is it going to be full of injuries or is it going to be full of success? We'll see. But excited for the second half of the season. Looked for continued dominance from OKC and Boston and Cleveland. And, everybody else, how can you replicate what the better teams in your conferences are going to do? We've seen them make moves in the deadline. Now it's time to see how it looks. Does it work? Does it work in Sacramento? Will Phoenix figure their stuff out? Only time will tell, but I'm definitely excited for this season and all the storylines that's going to unfold as we continue.
Absolutely. And just for those that want to know about the schedule going forward, tomorrow King Speech and his crew will be here for 10 Toes Down podcast. So make sure you check that out. Interesting topic, most overrated and most underrated NBA players of all time. So I think that's going to be an interesting topic. Tentatively, Goat Talk only will be Friday. I know we've missed the last one, and I'm kind of tentative on this weekend. It's just Friday nights sometimes are hard to to just settle down and get things going, especially when we got these snowstorms coming in and family coming in, having to rearrange some things. So tentatively, we will be doing a Goat Talk only. I just don't know if that's going to happen. So if it doesn't happen, I hope you guys tune in to 10 Toes Down with King Speech and his crew. So please support them. If we don't do anything Friday, I'll try to get something up this weekend from us, so we can continue to give you guys some type of content. But we just appreciate you guys. Two away from 200. So if you guys want to help us out, please get us to that 200 sub goal. Please continue to like and subscribe and share the channel. Just trying to continue to grow. So hopefully you guys will continue to help us grow. And with that said, I think that's going to be it for tonight.
All right, y'all.
All right.